I am so excited to have this very special guest on the Venture Love podcast. For our listeners, you'll definitely want to check Gillian Lopez out. First off, Gillian has such a positive and uplifting energy. It's definitely contagious, and it's always such a pleasure talking to her. So Gillian is the Vice President of Accounts and Growth for Maven Recruiting Group, and I'm so happy to have her on this show. So welcome, Gillian.
Thank you, Violet. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So as background, I've been an EA, or for those of you that don't know, executive assistant, working for really incredible CEOs, entrepreneurs, and C-suite execs for many years, since the age of 15, when I first started working at a law firm. And, Ms. Gillian here has been super instrumental in helping me find beautifully aligned companies to work for over the past decade. It feels like, when I was thinking back, I'm like, how long ago was that? And it was a little over 9 years, I think, for our first job that I worked at. So she's incredible at what she does. And Maven is so, so lucky to have her on the team. So now, given that I'm now a new mom, I thought it would be interesting to cover some topics my new mama friends might be interested in, relating to working or looking for work while being pregnant or being a new mom, and what it's like to find meaningful and balanced work you love. And I'm so excited to have Gillian on, because she's just like the perfect person to explain the best tips to help ensure you land the job that you really, really want. So first off, for our listeners who are interested in learning more about you, let's take a little bit of a step back. And do you mind sharing what life was like growing up for you? Did you know you always wanted to be in recruitment? And if not, how did your career path evolve into what it is today?
Yeah, so first and foremost, Violet, thanks for the warm and wonderful introduction. I have to say, I'm so grateful for our relationship that has evolved. You are absolutely right. Over the last decade, as long as I've been with Maven and as long as I've known you, and truly it's just been a joy to see how you evolved and found your own venture as well through your career path. So I'm excited to share a little bit about myself and things that have really worked over the last decade since I've been in this industry. So for me growing up, I have to say that I respect moms, especially working moms, like crazy. My mom and my family, we grew up in more of like lower working middle class. And so even though my mom didn't have a lot to provide, nor did my dad, they always showed us, quality time, selfless love. And back then, if you can imagine, my mom was commuting from UCLA all the way like an hour towards where we live. And every day she would just pour her heart and soul into taking care of us, picking up after school activities, waking up at 5 a.m., doing it all over again for 25 years. So life for me, I was always preview to seeing that hustle and the amount of love and joy that goes into, taking care of her kids, but also being there for her career and her colleagues. I even was going to her office sometimes, helping her with paperwork. And I was like, oh, wow, is this what it's like to see my mom dress up, work with her colleagues? So I guess you can say from a very young age, I was curious and playing all sorts of imaginative games like secretary or, the mail girl in the office. But yeah, so I was privy to, okay, like my mom is not only a provider for our family, she works and she also, takes care of people around her. Which led me to my career in recruiting. So how did that all come together? I knew growing up, I always wanted to work with people because my mom was the type of person that always loved to surround herself with people, whether it was guests over at our house or just being that amazing colleague at work. Um, did I know what recruiting was in college? Absolutely not. I was like, what is this? Like, there is someone out there to help guide you and coach you through your career and connect you to opportunities. Like, that sounds amazing. So I knew three things about myself. I loved working with people. I goal-oriented by nature because I was an athlete growing up. Don't forget those after-school activities that my mom took me every single day as a kid. And the third thing that I really knew about myself was that it was important to me to surround myself with a team, a great team that shared similar values, work ethic. So, as someone that was just straight out of college, I was like, okay, what is out there for me? I visited the San Francisco Bay Area, was energized by the city, and I said I knew I wanted to establish my career here. Lo and behold, through a mutual connection at college, she invited me to an interview at Maven. At the time, I was interviewing at other, sales, recruiting opportunities. And the reason why I chose Maven Recruiting Group is because it aligned with my top three values, um, which is definitely what I want to speak about today and some of the points that I have to share with your audience.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's so beautiful. First off, like huge shout out to your mama for raising you in such a beautiful way and instilling such, amazing values that I feel like you clearly still have within you today, and what you do and how you show up in your life and your work. So that's beautiful. And I love that. I love that. I literally pictured you walking around downtown being so, energized by like the city. And I know what that feels like. So thank you so much for sharing. So for our listeners who are interested in finding meaningful work that not only pays well, right? We all want to be paid fairly, but be paid well. And also feel good with the work that we're doing and provide a great level of work-life balance to care for our families and those of us that have children. What are 3 steps that you would suggest they take to ensure that they're on the right track towards finding work that they love?
Yeah. So, let's be honest, inflation is a pretty penny these days. So definitely we want to find a job not only that we love, but also supports our family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would first start by clearly identifying and defining what is it that they love doing. Because oftentimes when you are searching for a job, you can feel so lost. And you can also feel a lot of information overload, whether it's your husband or your parents or your network and coaches giving you all this advice, right? But at the end of the day, it's you doing the job 40 plus hours a week or part-time. So clearly identify and define like what is it the work that they love. And ways that you can do this are just dedicate some quiet time to read, seek informational interviews. So connect with like-minded or industry professionals that are similar to the opportunities that you're looking at. Reach out to them on LinkedIn and ask for just a 10, 15-minute coffee date.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with your network and talk about it. Talk about it with your coach. Seek information and refine your job search. Once you have a clear understanding around that, it really helps create some clarity and focus, and it reduces the anxiety and the sense of like feeling overwhelmed. Because let's be honest, like job searching is an exhausting process. It is a full-time job. It can also feel emotionally taxing at times because it's ups and downs. But once you have your focal point and your support system around you, whether it's your family, your husband, your coach, it really does ease the process, right? Especially, and I'm going to be honest, like climates like these, it may feel a little bit tougher, but it's not always forever. So that would be step number 1. Step number 2, and before I discuss step number 2, I have to say, Violet, you were exceptional 10 years ago at knowing what you wanted. And I'll lead into question number 2 of how we were able to get there. Violet was very aware and in tune of, the things that are most important to her. So as a part of your reflection process, journal and write this out. Like, what's most important to me? What are the types of people that I want to surround myself with? What do I envision myself doing from day to day? Think about the things that energize you and de-energize you. Write that out. That helps create a game plan to define, some focus to your search.
Mm.
So step number 2 would be tailoring and branding your resume to speak to the things that are most important to you. You're trying to align this career, this opportunity to the things that not only serve you, but maybe serve your family as well too. So ways that you can brand and tailor your resume is, I like to say, just use a simple Word document. You want to keep it fresh and you want to always tailor it to the role that you're applying for with integrity, of course. But today's systems with AI and applicant tracking systems, you want to just use a simple Word or PDF resume because your resume pulls into the applicant tracking system. So tailoring your resume, branding it to the opportunity that you're going after. And then the third and final step would be taking the time to just process after interviews. The beautiful thing about interviews is that it's a mutual discovery process. Just as much as the employer is interviewing you, you're interviewing them to see if it's a mutual great fit. And if it's not, course correct and change the things, going back to step number 1, that are most important to you and refining your search from there.
I love that. Such great, 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 beautiful tips. I mean, I'm just so reminded of, that first time I met you and I was in your office, and this is many years ago, but I remember sitting in the corner and we were talking. And one of the things that I took from you was just how important it was to really feel good about the work or the potential work, right? That I would be
Yes.
doing. Like, did this feel good? And I had, and to be frank, I had, worked with other agencies and just particularly working with you and working with Maven, I really love that you guys were so, it was just so important for you guys to make sure that the match was mutual. And I think that's lacking in other places. And I think it's important for those listening to understand that, like you said, Gillian, it's such a mutual thing. It's not just you being the employer, the worker, or the candidate, and giving them what they need. It's also, taking a step back. And I love that you said, in point 1, taking that quiet time to really absorb and think and process, like, hey, is this really gonna fulfill me? Is this enough money? Am I asking for enough? Is this the right environment? And these are all such like great questions to consider, at least thinking back to when I was working in corporate and different offices, and really taking the time and taking more time if needed to ask more questions or maybe set up like a follow-up, right? But I really loved your tips. I think they're so important. And I think even for myself, thinking, as being a new mom, and I know these are conversations that I have with other new mamas or those that are pregnant and on this new motherhood journey, considering like, oh, what's life going to look like after this baby is here? Am I going to be able to work? And when am I going to work? And what does work look like? Is it going to be 9 to 5, or is it going to be part-time? Am I going to work from home? There are just so many opportunities and options these days. And I think it's so refreshing to hear you provide such beautiful tips and such necessary tips, because I think it's so helpful. It's so helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Violet. And one of the things that is really important in our number 1 core value at Maven is candor, right? So the more honest we are with each other in this dialogue, whether it's with a recruiter, whether it's with your employer, you'd be surprised the reciprocal energy and information that is needed. Because at the end of the day, if this is a job that you love, but it's not a supportive environment, or maybe there isn't the work-life balance there for you, or they don't have good benefits, like, you need to know that, right? Information shouldn't be withheld on either parts. So I do truly believe that a part of what's contributed to our success and our relationship, and how you were able to also find and align opportunities that worked best for you, Violet, was because we were mutually honest with each other too, right? And sometimes I understand that can also be very hard. I call this having courageous conversations.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, like, when you are in the job, you want to also be honest with your employer. So it's a little bit of having trust and faith with the process, right? And I'm also understanding that sometimes circumstances may not allow you to be in that moment, especially if maybe you've been looking for months. But I do put a lot of faith into the process, and I do believe in the power of having courageous conversations and being very, very curious. My brain type, there's a lot of studies out there, personalities and stuff. I'm a quote unquote innovator influencer. So I'm really big on the 5 whys, and just simply asking the question like, oh, well, why is the culture like this? Or can you explain to me why the benefits work this way? Get curious and don't be afraid to ask those questions.
I love that. It's so true. It's so helpful. And, just being completely honest, thinking back as you were speaking, I was reminded of certain experiences, not with Maven, but just before Maven or throughout my journey. I've worked in so many different industries for different kinds of people, and some were amazing and some not so much. And I have to be honest, we all have to take responsibility for the actions we take in our lives. And I think those instances where, jobs potentially weren't the best match, were instances when I reflect now were rushed, right? Like maybe I just rushed into something and I didn't ask the proper questions. I didn't really get to understand the culture or the needs or the requirements as clearly as I should have. So I think it's such a really great reminder to take the time, even if you, like you said, maybe if someone's been looking for months, actually taking the time to sit still, to journal, I love the advice you said about reaching out on LinkedIn and reconnecting with maybe old colleagues or industries that you might be interested in. I love that. And refining your search. I love that. So thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, it's so helpful. So I always love to wrap up my interview by asking my guests what it means to venture a life that you love. So what does that mean to you, Gillian?
I love this question. I really do. And truthfully, it came naturally. I didn't have to think long and hard on this because it has just been a part of my life. But what does it mean to venture a life you love? For me, venturing a life I love means aligning your passions with your purpose. And whether it's profits or payment, that will follow. Because at the end of the day, like we do need, the pretty penny to support our family, our child's dreams, our own dreams. But it's so important. Life is short. There's a difference between means goals and end goals. So align your passions with your purpose. And I'll leave you with this special question. Since we spoke a lot about reflecting and journaling and aligning on your job search, a great question that you can ask during an interview process is, what are some ways the leadership team has supported you in your career and in your role at name of company? It's a very telling question because depending on who you ask, and maybe you ask every single interviewer, right? It gives you a perspective of what's important from that employee's time at the company. Sometimes people say it's career growth. Sometimes people say they give me time off to be there for my kids, for soccer practice. It's a really telling question. And it's a different way of asking, what is the culture like? Which is a common question everyone asks in their interview process. So ask the question, what are some ways the leadership team has supported you in your career journey at name of company? So hopefully that's also helpful for you guys with your job search process too.
That's so good. So good. Thank you so much, Gillian. And for those that would love to learn more about you or connect or learn more about Maven, where can they find you and where can they connect?
Well, we are all over LinkedIn. So just type in Maven Recruiting Group, and our website is www.mavenrec.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Gillian, I'm so grateful for you and for your time and for sharing your message. And it really does take a bold person to venture a life you love and genuinely help others along the way. And you're doing just that. So for those wanting to connect, I'll be linking the website she listed. So thank you so, so much.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here, Violet, and wishing all the best to the new mamas out there and existing mamas in the world. More power to you guys.
Thank you.